Hey everyone, welcome to Restored Relationships. This is Behind the Vows Monthly Marriage and Relationship Talk. I'm Pastor Earl. This is my lovely wife, Pastor Annette, and we've been married over 30 years for those who don't know us. And tonight we're going to talk to you a little bit about why so many couples are struggling, really struggling with turning all the promises, all the commitments they've made to one another, why they're struggling with turning them into assurances. So let's get into it.
Yeah, but first, if you may not agree, but we want you to just consider what we're saying, all right?
That's right. So our first topic for tonight is going to be what? We're gonna talk about three topics tonight. We're gonna talk about choosing to live together before marriage. We're gonna talk about starting a family prior to marriage, and last but not least, we're going to talk about planning a life before actually making that vow.
Yes. Yes. So,
Did you?
wanna talk?
I thought you wanted to talk about.
Oh, I did. I wanted to tell you a little bit about that. So I wanted to just kind of, why we chose those three things, it is because people believe that marriage isn't necessary, right?
That's right.
They just don't think it's the same thing that it used to be. Also, you've seen a lot of successful marriages that aren't working. There's a lack of them. So what we're doing is saying, why do I need to get married? Because marriages don't work. And the third thing is we do not understand that the vow of marriage is not just an emotional thing. It is also a legal thing. There's ramifications and things and consequences for leaving marriages. So what we do is we don't want to get into it.
That's right. So let's get started. Now, our
All right.
first topic tonight is choosing to live together before marriage. So my question would be to you guys out there, how many of you have lived together before you got married? Or matter of fact, how many are living together now and aren't married? Or how many are actually considering it, right? Because listen, it makes a lot of sense, right? On the surface, it seems to make a whole lot of sense. It makes perfect sense, in fact, right? It's a test run. We're going to see how things work out, see if we actually mesh, if we're actually compatible before we get married. However, and you might hear me say this a few times tonight, feelings aren't facts, right? Feelings are not facts because the study shows just the opposite. It says that couples that choose to live together prior to marriage, prior to getting engaged without setting a date for that marriage, those couples have a 40% greater chance of actually going into divorce if they actually get married. Because here, if marriage is your ultimate goal, then we want you to know there's a risk associated with choosing to live together before you get married. Because if those who live together prior to marriage, listen, it says statistics show that in the first year, they do have a lower divorce rate. However, after year one, they have a much higher divorce rate. It's for a lot of reasons, but one of the biggest reasons that we like to think, or we like to say, is something that we call partial commitment, right? It's very difficult to remain fully committed over time if you actually never committed fully. If that makes sense what I'm saying. Listen, anyone that's ever struggled with their weight, been on weight loss journey, amen, that's me. We all know that on this journey, there can be no half-stepping. It is a journey. It is a long venture. And we always start off strong, right? We start off eating right, we exercise, and we're doing everything. But over time, that's where we begin to fail. So when I'm talking about partial commitment, that would be like dieting, because we know we can't diet for 5 years. But full commitment would be like making a lifestyle change. And if we were to put this in the reference of living together would be a handshake commitment, while marriage would be a signed written document. There's a big difference. So simply living together, things like separation of finances can cause a problem. It can be a symptom of a problem, because what happens is, if you've been living together, maybe when it's time to get married, when it's time to come together with your finances, that co-ownership, that putting your funds together becomes difficult because you've been so used to living separately for so long. So if marriage is your ultimate goal, one of the questions that comes up is, how long should a woman wait, or how long should anybody wait before they get married? That's a question that I'm asking you guys. Answer in the chat. Throw it out there. How long do you think is a good time to wait?
Right.
Is it 1 year? Is it 2 years? Is it 3 years?
Yes.
I'm not sure, but I want you to understand that this too, while it might seem great, this too has a decreasing rate of productivity, of success, the longer you live together, because couples that live together for some length of time, sometimes they begin to feel, well, there's no actual need for us to actually get married.
Yeah.
So we want you to think, we want you to consider some of the detriments, some of the problems that come with living together
Yes.
before you decide to get married.
Yeah. And don't forget that question, how long should a woman wait? And if you have any additional questions, make sure that you go ahead and ask us. We're going to ask and going to answer some of them at the end of this podcast. So the other thing is, so number two he brought up is, how do we start? Why do we start families before marriages? That is a huge one. We are seeing it all the time. And what we're seeing is get together, have children, rent a home or what have you, get a home, and then consider marriage. Consider marriage. And we hear, oh, well, no, I'm not sure I want to marry her. I'm not sure I want to marry him. Let me say this, that one of the reasons that we're seeing is the monogamy in a monogamous relationship is on a decline. We have people who are not only not committing to the relationship, they're not committing to the marriage, they're not committing to one another. They just seem, yeah, this is my girl, but over here, there's somebody else that I might be getting. There's somebody else that might be going on. There is something else that might be, that I want. So monogamy isn't a thing anymore, and that is something. So now, again, we're choosing to have children with people who haven't fully committed to us. You think that because you're dating them, you think because you've been with them, that they're ready to have children with you. So we're getting pregnant, we're doing all kind of things. And then later on, they figure out, wait a minute, I'm not really that committed. I don't want to do that. And so that becomes a problem. And so the other thing, I'm going to tell you, Pastor, which is a big problem, we fail to learn people's backgrounds.
Yeah,
we don't look at their backgrounds. We don't let what their legal status is, even what's going on with them present day.
Because it makes a difference.
It does make a difference. And what happens is we get into these relationships and wow, all of a sudden, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. So we're starting these families before marriages, and we really aren't. The relationships really aren't solid, worth of anything.
It means so much when we even think about something like communication styles, because over the years we've talked to many a couple, and we can guarantee you that 90% of them have communication problems. And communication styles is something that comes up that you need to understand that has a lot to do with somebody's background. I come from a family where we believed in talking things out. We believed there was no need to yell, there was no need to holler, there was no need to scream. But if your significant other comes from a family where they do a lot of yelling and a lot of screaming, and then after that they just love on one another, those two styles conflict, because if you're used to yelling and I'm used to not, and you start yelling at me, I'm thinking there's a problem, and I might just shut down. And I might just shut down, and I don't want to talk because I'm trying to figure out why you need to yell. You might be trying to figure out why you're not yelling, because if you loved me, you would yell.
So how one was raised is extremely important.
It's a big deal.
And what the beliefs are. What my belief, I might not believe what you believe. I might not believe in punishing children. I might have been punished too much when I came up, and so I don't want it done anymore. We don't even look, how do we operate in past relationships? We love the little crime stories. I hate to admit that, but we love the little true crime stories. And what always happens is you find out that she didn't know. She knew that he had beat on his previous girlfriend, but she decided to give him a chance. those things are something that we need to learn how to ask deep, pertinent questions of each other. And we don't do it. We only know what's on the surface, right?
Amen. Because
Amen.
we believe that we are all products of our past, right? But how do we carry that baggage into these relationships? Well, how is it affecting us in our relationships? And because we're starting these families without taking the time to get to know one another truly, not the surface level stuff, but the deep stuff, without taking the time to get to know one another. Therefore, we're starting these families before we make that true commitment of
Yes.
marriage. Then what happens, even as that family grows, we start to realize there's conflict in between us.
Yep.
And I can't tell you how many times we've talked to couples that have children and they've been together for years. And they're still trying to decide if they're going to get married and quite frankly are uncertain if they should marry that person because all of these things are coming out that they said they did not know about one another.
It is something, and we're seeing it on the rise. And one thing I know that you brought up children. As these children see this conflict, then what happens to the children? And what we say is, oh, they're young, they don't see anything. That children are more perceptive than what you give them credit for. They see everything. Think about what you saw when you were younger.
And not just conflict, unhealthy conflict.
Unhealthy conflict. That's right.
Conflict.
We need to say unhealthy. Conflict is good. Unhealthy conflict is not.
That's a no-no.
All right. So our next one we want to bring together is the planning a life together.
Planning a life together before making that vow, before making that commitment.
Yes.
And this goes to what we just got finished talking about a lot of times, this whole idea of this lack of communication, this lack of communication, bad communication, miscommunication. It causes so many problems. And what happens is we start to plan these lives together, but we really, again, we don't take the time to have the conversations that we truly need to have with one another.
Right.
It's the things that seem so simple. We've talked to many a couple, and I can't tell you how many times, again, couples that have been together for years are in conflict, bad conflict, because what the wife wanted in a husband, she doesn't believe he's providing. And what the husband wanted in a wife, he doesn't believe she's providing. What happens many times is in these relationships, we get in our minds, in our heads, what my wife looks like. This is what a wife looks like to me. This is what a husband looks like to me. We get these things in our mind, but we don't tell the other person. So I don't tell the other person that, you know what, as a wife, I want to come home and I want to have a dinner on the table at 5:30 every day. I'm just using that for an example. And your wife is thinking, brother, I work too. I'm working hard just like you. Why can't you have the dinner ready for me?
Yes.
But something as simple as that, not communicating that, causes so much horrible conflict because now we've got expectations of one another that we never passed on. And we hold that person accountable for the expectations that I never communicated.
Yes.
Now, is that fair? It's not. What do you guys think about that? Can you remember a time where you were with your significant other, whether you've been in a married, whether you've been in a long-term relationship? Can you remember a time where you expected your significant other to do X, Y, Z, but you never really communicated? Think about it. Think about it. Did you really tell them that you expected them to do X, Y, Z? Or did you kind of assume that they should know to do X, Y, Z?
And many times we just assume they should know. How many times you ever hear a woman say, well, he should already know that. Especially when we've been together for a while, but we've not, again, had those conversations. There's also another thing we need to bring out, an inability to fully understand the commitments that we plan to make. We come up with all of these plans that we want to have happen, that we want from one another, but we don't understand really what we're asking. We don't understand what's going on. We have no conversations regarding those expectations. And I believe you touched on that. Well, this is what I want from you. This is what I want to go. This is where I want you to be. Those kind of things. This is what I want from my husband. Even when we get into relationships, it's not just about marriage. This is relationships as well. We get into relationships and we think, oh, this is the perfect person, and they this and they that, and they start out wonderfully, but we forget to continue to tell them, this is how I want to be treated. This is how I want things to be done for me. So we go on and we make these plans thinking that we can change people.
Yep,
right?
we
can change people, or they love me, so they're going to change. And guess what? They're not, because they don't have a clue. And we need to understand that there are different beliefs of where a relationship is going. Many times, what I believe a relationship is going is not where you believe it's going. We don't have those conversations, do we? At all. We think that it's going wonderful. How many times have you been in a relationship? We've heard people been in a relationship and they thought it was going wonderful. We ask, how is things? Oh, it's good. It's just wonderful. And the other person like, face just tore up, right? Because nobody's talking about how they feel things are happening and going, right? It becomes a problem. And if we don't learn how to plan our life before the vow, instead, and in a way that we are going to the vow, if that makes sense, then we'll never, when we get to that place, if we ever get to that place, then, what you're going to do is find yourself not behind the vow ever.
A lot of times, to add to what you're saying, a lot of times, some of it has to do with, honestly, we just don't know how to be in a relationship.
We don't.
Because of our past, because of our upbringing. We've met people that have been in abusive relationships, and once they got into a relationship that was healthy, they did not know how to respond. They don't know how to respond to someone even being too kind. Or being too respectful. They simply don't know how to respond to that. And this happens in relationships all the time. Listen, we all go through these. We learn a lot through what we've observed. And unfortunately, many people come up in households where they had no true model of what it took to be in a relationship. So no, they did not know. A boy did not understand what it took to be a husband and a father. A woman did not understand. She didn't learn what it took to be a mother and a wife. So what happens is we get together and we do the best we can. I'm not saying you're not trying. I'm not saying that you don't want to do better. I'm just saying you can do the best you can and still not be doing a good job at it simply because you don't know. You don't have the tools. And unfortunately, this is what we're seeing in a whole lot of relationships nowadays. People just don't know that. And I tell you, another thing that just comes to my mind is sometimes I believe we have unrealistic expectations in relationships. Sometimes we get into this knight in shining armor thing, this princess ideal, and those expectations that we have. Listen, marriage, long-term relationships, it's not the movies. It's not come home every day and you guys, you've been thinking about each other every day. You have this passionate kiss and you say, forget dinner, we're gonna make love in the room. That does not happen all the time in real life.
No, it doesn't.
That's movie stuff. And I don't want people out there to get confused with the movies in real life. In real life, sometimes you wake up next to that person that you married, that you've been in a long-term relationship with, you're like, oh, they're still here.
Oh, God.
Oh. How do you deal with that? What do you pull on to say, listen, I'm married, I'm committed to this person, because this goes back to that partial commitment. If I'm not married, then technically speaking, what do I have that really has to hold me there? Because I think you mentioned this, that it's not just an emotional commitment, there's a legal commitment as well. And anyone that says that you don't have to be married, I'm telling you, you don't have to be married to love one another. But it can be difficult to be in this long-term relationship, be in this partial commitment, and still living like you're fully committed,
That's right.
but not being fully committed. There's a difference.
And we have it all, we see it a lot. I mean, even people who have been together for years and years, they still aren't fully committed to what's going on. You know, you mentioned something else that, I got my brain going. Many of us are growing up with we don't have fathers and we don't have mothers. Some of us don't have mothers. And why am I saying that is because the first person that you ever learn to love is as a man is your father. When they're not there, what we do is we're out there seeking. Maybe you had a father and he wasn't a good father, right? He just wasn't there. He was doing his own thing, and he taught you that that was okay for a man to be out there doing his own thing. That we bring that, or so let me go to, or maybe you didn't have a mother, or men who saw fathers doing things. I'm going back and forth, but you just don't learn how to have a good with a good husband or a good wife or a good boyfriend or a good girlfriend. Your father is your first boyfriend. Your mother is your first girlfriend, the one you learn how to love. And so when you don't have that and you get into these relationships, what you do is you go based off of what you lacking and not what you have. And so we're going around looking for all of this stuff that we need, all of this stuff that we want, and we can't give what we should in a relationship. So, these three things that we talk about,
They're
it's
big things.
important.
They're not all the things, but we wanted to bring to light these three major things that we see out there. It's something that's growing more and more. It's becoming, I think, more and more of a problem because the divorce rate is only increasing. Broken families are only increasing. And we're falling apart as far as a family unit is concerned. We always say, or I always say, I know, marriage ain't for suckers. It is one of the most difficult things that you'll ever do in your life, but it's also one of the most rewarding things that you'll ever have. And I can speak from experience, like I said, over 30 years.
Over 30 years.
With this woman, I'm not going to tell you my age, but
I think you
it's
just told
a little bit. But listen, I hope everybody got something out of this.
Yeah. Our producer has some questions that you sent in, but before we go to those questions, I just want you to know that we have counseled couples for well over, 15 years?
Yeah,
We've been able to understand and help couples like yourself and create a foundation for those relationships so that you are able to grow with one another.
Because this is what we do. This is what we do.
do.
Listen, we are out here working for you
Yes.
at Behind the Vow Marriage and Relationship Counseling in hopes that we can give you the tools, help you be better and grow a greater relationship with your significant other. That's what we want to do. And we also spiritually lead as pastors at the Restored Life Church.
Yes, we do. So however you came to listen to us and whatever reason you did for relationship or marital counseling or spiritual guidance, whatever that is, we thank you for allowing us to be a part of your journey.
That's right. That's right. So let's get to those questions our
Okay.
producer has for us. Let me see. Question one. I waited for 6 years, and I think this is from Amber. I waited for 6 years for my boyfriend to propose. He gave me the ring, but not the commitment. I feel like he just gave me the ring to shut me up. Wow. We hear that, Amber. Thank you for that question. It's not odd. I don't want you to think that you're the odd duck, the unusual person, because we do, unfortunately, we hear that quite a bit. One of my questions would be, were you constantly asking him to marry you? Where's my ring? Where's my ring? Where's my ring?
Yes.
Because sometimes men feel that they're back in a corner. They don't want to lose you. Now, they might not want to get married, but they know they don't want to lose you. So it might be just as you suspect. He gave you a ring, not necessarily to shut you up, but to satisfy you until he actually feels he's ready to take that next step.
Yeah.
I think maybe the discussion you two need to have is what what does he need from you to feel that he's ready to get married, and you need to tell him what you need from him to
Right.
actually feel that you're both ready to be married, because you can be ready, but if he's not ready, it's still not going to work. And that's kind of how you end up in this situation where you feel like you got the ring just to be shut up, and nobody wants to feel like that. When you get that ring, you want to feel like this was given to me because I was the most important, I was the most special person
That's how you
in the
should
world.
feel.
That's how you should
That's
feel.
how you
So
should
Amber,
feel.
I thank you for that question. I'm telling you, have that talk,
Have the
that conversation with him,
Yes.
and see where his head is, see where his heart is, more importantly. Okay.
All right, so we have at Cameron Pays, my man, I'm sorry, wants me to be a wife, but I don't want him to treat me like a wife before I get a ring. Does this make me selfish? Oh my goodness. No, it does not. You know why? Because you are doing wifely things on girlfriend money. You do not do that. You are not a wife. If there's an expectation, then there should be a ring on it, right? Or actually, I don't want to say a ring. There should have been some vows behind that. We hear that a lot. We get this, and this is part of what we were talking about, how we get into these relationships and we put a promise. It's not really a promise. No, you are not selfish. No, you should not be acting as a wife when you are not a wife. Being a wife is tough. Just be a girlfriend. You got anything on that?
No. I mean that sounds it. They talk about you want somebody to take care of the spousely duties, but they're actually only a girlfriend. And there's a conflict there.
There's
So
a
I
big
definitely
conflict.
understand. I definitely understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got another
All right, and I think I got one from here from Dr. Goofball. And Dr. Goofball says, I need help. So me and my girlfriend are going through like a mental breakup from each other, but it's hard to do when we live together. But I feel like our household is breaking up before it even starts.
Wow.
Wow. I mean, Dr. Goofball, that's a tough one. This kind of goes to the whole living together thing. You're having a mental break, or you believe that there's some type of conflict in the house. One of my first questions would be, what is that mental break? What is causing that? Is it a lack of communication? Is there something else going on? Did somebody do something, infidelity or something else that is causing that break? What is the reason for that break? Because even if you are having this break, and it sounds like what you're saying is you believe that possibly you need a separation of time to go to your own corners and get it together. Because what I imagine is what you're saying is you come home and it's immediately argue, and you just can't get a break. Sometimes when these things come up, if you feel that you cannot have a conversation without it going to the left, without it becoming hostile, and when I mean hostile, I don't mean physical. I'm just talking about an argument that gets out of control where nobody feels heard. Sometimes it's necessary to seek professional counseling, right? To have that unbiased opinion that can see from the outside what is so difficult to see from the inside. Because it sounds like you guys are at a point where you're probably not even listening to one another. You're hearing each other say words, but you're probably more worried about responding than you are listening. And when we talk about communication, the most important factor is the listening, not the talking. So what happens is when we start to listen to respond, then that means we end up missing a whole lot of what's being said, because we start to key in on certain words and we start to write up that answer. I got one for him on that. I got one for with that. And we're writing up our answers and we're missing all other parts of the conversation. So can you guys have a decent conversation? Or how is your communication going? Did something happen to cause this break? and think about the possibility of seeking some professional help.
People do not seek
Whether it's
professional help.
a professional counselor or a
Or
pastor.
as somebody, there's always help out there for you. Definitely get some help.
Don't do the parent thing.
Yeah, please.
Don't do the
And
parent.
don't do the friends that, because they're never going to. One of the things when I officiate, I always tell you, do not seek any other help but either pastoral or professional because it's always going to be biased.
Always.
Somebody's always going to take the other side. All right, we have another one from Stacy Smith. My husband and I have been married for 2 years. However, I feel like his girlfriend rather than his wife. What can I do or say to let him understand my role in his life now? That one is so. My question always is did you all talk before the marriage? It's been 2 years, and after, have you had the conversation after? We go back to communication again.
Always.
Have you had the conversation after? And sometimes I hear, yes, I did, and he wasn't listening to me. And other times I hear, no, I haven't. I just try to do this, or I'm trying to make this happen, or I try to do more so he'll get it. We always going to suggest the conversation be had. That is the first thing. And then and in that conversation, have that statement, talk to each other about expectations.
Definitely.
Because what he expects from you, what do you expect from him? Does he even know that? So if you're feeling like his girlfriend, how is he feeling about you, and what do you want from him, and what does he want from you? Am I making sense? I'm making sense here. So definitely you need to talk. If he is a person that is hard to have a conversation with, somehow you all got together and you were talking. Find that middle ground again. Find that and begin to have those conversations. Tell him what you need. Let him hear what you need. Tell him what you want, and vice versa, so that you can begin to feel like you're his wife. And let him know, I don't feel like your wife. Sometimes we're scared to even say stuff like that.
That's right.
Let him know how you feel. And so, and it goes, and I hope that works out for you.
That's good. That's good. I think this last question I have is from a Queen Crystal. My husband came from a household that says expressing your feelings as a man is considered being soft. How do I, as his wife, let my husband know that he can be vulnerable with me and I will never see him as soft, because now I'm seeing the same traits in my 6-year-old son. Wow,
Yeah.
wow, that's powerful. That's powerful. Listen, I think that's one of the most difficult things that's out there. Many men, even as men, we grow up, we told to be strong.
Yeah.
Big boys don't cry. When we hurt ourselves, they tell us to suck it up and walk it off.
Yep.
That's kind of the theme of our lives. So what happens, as you said, Queen, that you get these men that don't want to share their feelings because it makes them feel less than a man. It's going to be a difficult task to get him to open up. I recommend having small conversations. And again, this might also be a situation where, at least for his part, it might be good for him to talk to a pastor or somebody professional that can help him understand that men have feelings, right? We understand that. We just choose to deal with them a bit differently. But the idea that men don't hurt, men don't feel sad, it's a lie, right? Men have feelings. Anger is just an easy feeling for men to express. Why? Because anger demonstrates strength. Anger demonstrates power. I can get angry and I can show you that I'm not putting up with your mess. I'm not putting up with your foolishness. And I feel powerful when I'm angry. But if I have to express sadness or anything like that, then what I'm doing is I'm putting out weakness. And I can't be weak if I'm a man. So this can be a very difficult trait for him to understand. But let me say this, that when we get your husband to the part where, or to the point where he's actually beginning to express a little bit of his emotions, what I do is say, make certain that you never use any of what he's told you emotionally against him, right? If you ever use it as a weapon, then what you'll do is you'll shut him right back
Yeah.
down again.
Yeah.
And what he'll say is, see, I knew I should have never let down my guard. I should have never made myself vulnerable. I should have never made myself soft. It won't happen again. It is not unusual. There are ways through it, but your husband, I don't know how willing he is to change. And see, when we talk about change, people don't want to. People say they don't like to change, right? I'm not talking about changing your personality or
Who
anything
you
like that.
are.
No, I'm
No.
not talking about changing who you are. What we're talking about is changing your habits.
That's right.
Talking about changing how you interact and how you react,
Your
how you
thought
respond,
process.
right? Your thought processes. These are the things we're talking about that has to change in a relationship. Because if you don't want to change, then you might as well not have gotten married.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
just what it is. I talk about this all the time. It might not seem like it, but I'm an introvert by nature. And my wife would, in her job, she had to go to these functions and she would hobnob with these big people and whatnot. But because I'm an introvert, I can walk into a room, into a party, and honestly, I can sit down by myself and I don't have to say anything to anybody. If you say something to me, I won't be rude. I'll talk, but I'm not bothered by being by myself and nobody talking to me. It does not bother me in the least. But I couldn't do that at the functions with her because her peers are looking at her like, what's wrong with him? Is it a problem with him? So I'm hobnobbing and I'm smiling and I'm saying, hey, Bill, and I'm just having a good old time. But I tell you, afterward, I was emotionally exhausted. I was wiped. But the point I'm making is I had to change my actions, my interactions to be the husband that she needed me to be in those moments. This is the kind of change that we're talking about. So, Queen, what I want to ask you, and if you can pass this on to your husband, maybe he can see this. Is he willing? Are you willing, sir, to be the husband that she needs you to be in those moments? Not the husband that you think you should be, but the husband that she needs you to be. Queen, I hope that's helpful. And I'm telling you, have your husband take a look at this.
And one more thing, if he has a friend that is, that is in touch with, I hate to say in touch with his emotions, but, that tends to be a little bit more emotionally sound, talk to the friend and have them talk to him as well. Sometimes we hear our friends before we hear our wives.
That's true. That's true. That's
Right,
true.
so
All right.
that helps. All right, I think that's it.
I think that's it.
Producer, I think we're good. So we hope that you have had a wonderful time. We will be doing this monthly. Next month's topic, our June topic is life after cheating. Your partner cheated, now what?
Right.
All right. So that is our next topic next month. Look out for our postings and things like that. We hope that you had a wonderful time. We hope that you got something out of this. We are just ecstatic about this, and we hope that you have been helped, and we hope to continue helping you. God bless you.
No, have a great day. I had a great time,
I did.
and I hope somebody got something. I know somebody got something out of this, and we thank you for joining us.
Yeah, have a good one.
Have a good one.
And have a great Memorial Day.
Yeah, definitely. Great Memorial Day. We'll see you next month.
All right.